is on the Zoom. So my dad's here. Thanks, Dad. You're welcome to turn on your camera later. All right, today I'm going to be talking about what I'm calling redefining digital wellness. And just a few intro things before we get started. Camilo already did my intro for me, but in general, this talk, there's no stupid questions. This is going to be, I hope, a little bit more conversational than me blahing at you for an hour. So feel free to ask questions, raise your hand, turn on your video, whatever you like. Thanks, Camilo and the CBA for putting the show on and organizing it all. Camilo's done an awesome job organizing the show, installing it, doing everything. And I'm sorry, those of you that weren't on the other workshop I did a dark web treasure hunt workshop a couple weeks ago. But if you sign up on my website and follow me, I tend to do that workshop every couple months. A shout out to collaborators on this project, John Demerit, who also published the books. John is a bookbinder and maker in San Francisco, and he's worked with me on tons of books before, and these are no different. Heather Peters is a paper maker and print maker in California, and she worked with me to make some custom paper for this book. Margaret Schneider, I've worked with for maybe 6 years now, and collaborates with me on basically everything I write. And it's wonderful to move ideas back and forth with her. Peter Ash did some 3D designing for me for some of the pieces in this project, and Mariana Villarose, my wife, did a bunch of design work and photo work on that. So I want to shout out to all of them. So the show up at CBA is called Resistance Systems Spring 2022. I'll just show a couple slides from this for those that haven't been there. The text on the wall says, "Dear investor, Resistance Systems first launched with signal blocking clothing that separates you from your devices. For our Spring 2022 collection, we are focused on kits for cleansing and renewal. Here we present our newest additions. No longer does digital wellness need to mean ignoring your screen. With products to purify your digital life, not simply your body and mind, Resistance Systems is here to guide you on your journey." Tim Schwartz, founder of Resistance Systems. So, at first glance, actually, I'll tell you. No, I'll skip that. There's the text again. There's 3 pieces in the show. One is called Digital Resistance Kit, and I'll get into each of the pieces and kind of the thoughts behind them in a second. This is in the center. It's a stack of kind of containers for these different objects, and they all go inside this box in the middle. The next is called Coin Collector, and it is 2 components that go in this chemise, which is at the bottom of Coin Collector, together. And finally, it's Password Cleanse. And I'll get into the meanings of each of those in a second. So I'm kind of trying to define this talk as pushing against what digital wellness is in our culture right now. I don't know if anybody here has heard the term digital wellness, but in essence, it's kind of been co-opted by the big companies to deal with screen time. So this is a definition out there on the web that kind of is a general definition that I find works pretty well to bring it together for how everybody's using it, which is digital wellness is the pursuit of an intentional and healthy relationship with technology, both in the workplace and in personal life. And it's mostly focused on, say, the screen time app in Apple, or Google has a similar one called Digital Wellbeing. That's basically screen time, app timers, and it's all about abstinence or deciding how much or how little you use your device. You could think of it as maybe getting the kids off the screen, or making sure the kids aren't playing too many video games. But basically, it's about how much we use it and screen time, not anything more than that. Digital security, on the other hand, which is kind of something that I think is maybe more important than just screen time. We're talking about the devices we use and how they're used and how they're protected and how we are protected. Digital security is a collective term that describes the resources employed to protect your online identity data and other assets. And I think that's a little closer to what I'm trying to encapsulate in this new definition of digital wellness. But it's not quite everything. Digital security is really about protecting and wardening off, and just as wellness, a general term, is more about being beyond illness. It's about being well. It's about living a life that's even better than being sick, or sorry, better than not being sick. I think digital security is still about just protecting against illness. And so what I'm trying to think of is what goes beyond securing your devices to using them in a mindful way, using technology in a mindful way that isn't just about on or off with screen time. So the problem is, if we think about digital security and how it's used today and the aesthetics of it, this is what digital security looks like. And if I was going to try to package this and sell it or try to convince people that digital security is important, if I use the aesthetics that are currently employed by digital security, no one wants it. And I think this is, I'll back up by saying digital security, digital wellness, whatever my version of it is, I think these are things that we should be learning probably in school, much like we should probably be learning, like we should have like a home ec class still about how to cook and clean. And we should have probably a personal finance class in school. In the same way, we should have like a responsible use of technology class, but it's not taught. And it's really actually not taught anywhere unless you kind of go looking for it. Maybe you get a little bit of it if you have a job and there are some requirements at your job for how you use technology and how you protect it. But generally, it's kind of not taught anywhere. So my project at CBA, Resistant Systems, is an attempt to kind of package some of the ideas in digital security and about protecting digital identities and data, and do it in a way that makes it palatable to people that aren't at this digital security conference. So this is my attempt to define digital wellness, or redefine it. Digital wellness is making informed and intentional choices to protect your identities, data, and digital future. And this isn't just when I say protection, we're not just talking about your antivirus software. I'm talking about things like password hygiene, about backing up schedules so that you don't lose your data in the future, being cognizant that people are trying to steal your identity. So what does it mean to do a credit freeze on your credit reports? Things like that, I think, can all be part of digital wellness. So in this project at CBA, Resistant Systems, my attempt was to take this, sort of, and repackage it like this in order to make it viewable and understandable from a different lens of personal wellness. Let me just say, these are kind of images of Goop. I think Goop has done an outstanding job, at least for a while, until kind of last year when it had some larger issues, and there's a Netflix documentary about it. But it's done a really good job at packaging wellness, productifying it. I don't agree with a lot of the things they sell, which are closer to pseudoscience and not exactly proven, but this kind of aesthetic has captured the attention of a lot of people, and people feel good about using and adopting products that are packaged this way. So let me walk through, and please stop me at any time if you've got questions or if I'm not being clear about things. So the three pieces in the show, the first one is called Password Cleanse. It's for simplifying your security. It is Clamshell Box. Maybe I'll show it here instead of just showing you images, or I'll go through the images and then show it. It's a clamshell box with a book on the inside, dice, and a ring for wax sealing. there's a drawer that pulls out with wax, a pen, matches, and handmade paper that have a watermark of a hand on it. The book is called A Diceware Word List on Passphrase Creation. And it is, if you all can see that, let me know if you can't, and I'll hold up a book instead. But it's a list of something like, I'm going to get the number wrong, I think 20,000 words. And basically each number in there is in order and corresponds to rolling 5 dice at the same time, a number that's created randomly by the 5 dice. The idea of password cleanse is, let's see if this video plays. No. Okay, video doesn't play, so I will show it live. All right, I think I should be big over there. Is that correct, or is Camilo big? I'm big. Okay, cool. Let's see. Cool. So you're seeing my art studio. This is password cleanse. You open it up, and there is instructions on this card of how to use it. This pops up, and the dice drop in the top here and shoot out the side. This is called, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, a dice tower, which is for randomly generating numbers where you drop dice in and they come up the side. It's very satisfying to drop these dice in here. But basically, you get a random number from these 5 dice. You look it up in this book based on the number, and you get a random word. So a random word might be bubbling. And if you do that a few times in a row, so if I did bubbling, latch, I'm rolling the dice each time, bubbling, latch, oboe. Bubbling, latch, oboe is, I think that's about 18 letters long. That is a pretty strong password to be used, and it would be totally random and memorizable because it's 3 words in a row as opposed to having numbers, exclamation points, things like that. So this technique of generating passwords was figured out in the early 90s. It's called Diceware. And this list has been worked on by a couple different organizations. The last one is the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I used that word list for the creation of this. So the idea is this package in general, you can create random passwords that then you write on this piece of paper, fold it, and wax seal it with this ring, leaving you a packet like this. So you would have memorized a password, and then you have a backup should you ever forget it, or say you want to store it somewhere. And this is part of the longevity of digital wellness is the storage for your death, or if something happens in the future, you could store this password or give it to someone else, say your father or friend that you trust to save, and know that if you ever die, they're supposed to open it, and then they can get access to your password manager and get into all your other systems. So in general, password cleanse is about not just generating lots of random passwords, but hopefully generating 3 strong passwords for your computer, password manager, and probably email, and having backups of those that could be stored with someone else. Anybody got questions on this? I can talk about how these things are built if anybody's interested, or show more of it. Hi.
Hi. This is so fascinating. It's not really a question I'm processing, but this is absolutely the same technology as the earliest cylinder seal rolling in Mesopotamia. I know you know that, but it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm just beaming. I mean, it's the ultimate low tech, high concept, but it worked for millennia.
Yeah.
There.
I wasn't able to attend, but in relation to this show, CBA did another workshop with, Camilo, help me out on Jenna's last name. If you can
Jana
remember.
D'Ambrogio?
I think so.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Jana's at MIT, and she is the foremost expert on letter locking as
Hmm.
a study. This is called letter locking, and it's all the different technologies in how you fold and wax seal papers so that they can be secure. And they had a paper in, I think it was Nature, it wasn't Nature. They had a paper, big write-up in the New York Times, I think 3D scanning a still wax sealed letter from, I can't remember which English queen, in the New York Times recently.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Cool.
this technology is super interesting and old school, and it still works, right?
Yeah.
You can still tell if it's broken.
That's right. And in the case of early, cultures in the Middle East, it was mud, it was clay. So,
Huh.
really easy to break. But the whole point was you could tell if it was broken.
Could you describe the whole cylinder? And I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I want you to do your talk and not me to think. But they're these iconic, this iconic category of object, which is they're all different stones, precious, semi-precious, frit, clay, and they're literally cylinders that are carved. They're miniature. They can be sometimes this big, but they're often tiny, tiny, and they're carved with images in miniature, in mirror, in the round. So as a sealing, the actual image is only produced when it's rolled, obviously, and it's not, the image lives in the actual object, but you can't see it very easily there. And it's this way of, because it was used for storage jars, surplus. It's when surplus begins. And so they're rolling, they're putting their grain in a jar, for instance, and they're packing it with like some sort of fabric and then mud, clay, and then they're sealing it. And the seal is very much associated with a particular individual. So that is the authority, the administrative authority, and that authority can then tell if it's been broken into. I mean, that's very simple. And then stamp seals also exist, which are more akin to what you're using. But it's a security system, plain and simple. So
It's so amazing how
excited.
old it is.
Yes, I'm so excited. Okay, sorry.
Well, get ready. We've got 2 more wax seals.
Cool. I'm here.
So let me hop back. Does anybody have any more questions about this? Because I can show this, and then I'm going to flip back to the presentation. I'll just say this is a limp binding on this handmade paper from University of Iowa, and I'll show this other paper in here that Heather Peters made. That is, we've got our watermark of the hand on there and laid lines to kind of affect a 200-year-old English paper, and it's a fermented smashed flax paper, and it folds very nicely. It's very crispy. Cool. And the hand basically in this one symbolizes kind of the stop. Look at that. Oh, there's the video. I'm not going to play the video because I just showed it. But, all right. Coin Collector is the second book in the set. And let me just say, the text at the beginning references Dear Investor, and I made a conscious choice not to recreate a pop-up shop in this exhibition. It's more the idea that these are speculative prototypes that an investor could invest in, and then we would build them. I didn't want these to be kind of the pop-up shop version of a brand. So Coin Collector starts to think through what digital wellness means for money and investment online and how you protect it. This is my first piece dealing with cryptocurrency. So in the chemise are 2 things. I'll read this really quickly. Coin Collector helps you on your journey of giving up on desires associated with money. Find freedom in the release of your connections with paper money, fiat currency, government control, and even precious metals. With our new crypto portfolio, you will see economic value in exchange through a new lens. The logo for this is obviously fingers crossed. So there's two things, the portfolio and the numismatic glossary. This is another image of the chemise. The reference, if you all haven't caught it, is to the 1950s coin collection books that were kind of boxed, like fake blue leather, and they were always cut on the tops and bottoms like that, this binder's board. So the Numismatic Glossary is a glossary of kind of old school coin collection terms and contemporary cryptocurrency terms. Oh, my computer's about to die. But I'll plug it in. Sorry. Nope. Sorry about that. There we go. So it's a way for me to think through contextualizing what's going on right now and all the language around that, but through the eyes of older coin collection. So like there's an example term would be bag, which is crypto slang for a large quantity of a specific cryptocurrency, alternatively, but less frequently used to refer to the contents of an individual's crypto portfolio. And bag mark, a surface mark or nick on a coin, usually from contact with other coins in a mint bag, more often seen on large gold or silver coins. Then there's a bag holder, an investor who continues to hold large amounts of a specific coin or token regardless of its performance. And this is in blue goat skin leather and with a silver foil stamp. And the other piece, this is kind of to contextualize the other one. The other one is a portfolio of crypto coins. It's $1,000 worth of crypto coins. Originally $1,000. I think we're down to $500 because of the crash recently. But the portfolio has about, I think it's 12 or 13 kind of a variety of coins from this year, about $70 each of them. And it comes with these devices. So in the center is this USB device called a Ledger Nano X. That's kind of the most secure and popular what's called a hardware wallet. You can see it here, where you connect it to your computer, enter a PIN code, and that enables the private keys on this device to be used to control your crypto coins. The only way to access that is the PIN code that is etched on the inside of this thing at the bottom. I'll show the real devices in a second. So actually, I'll show it here. It'll be easier. So in coin portfolio, so there's these two stainless steel plates bolted together and then wax sealed on the inside with our fingers crossed emoji wax symbol. So once someone breaks this wax seal and gets it, then they can unlock the digital device and get all the coins from it, or control them, send them by others. The other thing in it is the ultimate backup. So should that device break or your house catches on fire, there's a 24 short word passphrase locked on this in little tiny plates of letters that are embedded on the cylinder, on a rod in the cylinder in the center. Then this is wax sealed, so you can rebuild that USB device should it ever break. And this is kind of like the ultimate backup. And the reason for all this is kind of to do an anti-NFT where I'm making a physical version of crypto coins, but the ultimate kind of digital wellness version where you are getting a package of coins, a glossary to explain them, and then your portfolio is fully redundant and able to kind of work into the future. It's not like a bullshit version of this. We're talking about the real technology all embedded in it. And I will say, that actually reminds me, all of these things are the real thing, even if they are in these aesthetic cases and they go to great lengths to be beautiful and work within this framework of digital wellness and this speculative brand. They're all real. And that's kind of something in my work that I try to do with everything, is do the real version of it. Anybody got any questions on this one before I move on? Okay. The last one is called Digital Resistance Kit. And this is kind of the heaviest one. Digital Resistance Kit came out of my work from Los Angeles Crypto Party, and then my work of prototyping the book I wrote on how to be a whistleblower. So this was kind of my art thinking of how to package, how to drop off the grid and be able to deliver information anonymously to a journalist, or do research online anonymously, or communicate with someone pseudonymously. So this is kind of like a go bag for your identity. You could literally take this kit and go out the door, go to a Starbucks, hop on their Wi-Fi, and do all the things I've just listed. So it comes with a small manual called Manual of Digital Resistance. That's like a really base level of information on how to do those things, say VPN, Tor, go on the dark web, do encrypted email, encrypted data transfer, things like that. It comes with, the next row is the series of packets. There's a USB stick for Tails, which stands for the Amnesiac Incognito Live System, for going on the dark web and rebooting computers into it. So you could go to a library and put in this USB stick, reboot it onto it, and you're automatically connected to the dark web and kind of have encrypted email and chat programs set up. And when you pull out the USB stick, it forgets everything that happened. Edward Snowden famously, when he left the NSA, walked out the door when he flew to Russia with 3 of these sticks with him. There's also an anonymous email account, $100 in anonymous cash, anonymous Bitcoin, some Starbucks cards, gift cards, and Visa gift cards, which you use for buying VPNs and other things anonymously. These are all wax sealed with a handshaking emoji visual icon. The next drawer is 2 burner phones, a burner smartphone and a burner flip phone, and the SIM card, top-up card, and the password to get into the smartphone. And you basically, this is used so you register a new phone number with the flip phone, and then you can register a Signal account or other messenger accounts on the smartphone, and then destroy the flip phone or destroy the SIM card. And that way you can have Signal and other messaging apps, but that are actually disconnected from a SIM card. And then there's a tablet, an anonymous tablet in the bottom, and the passwords get into that, and it's already set up with dark web, password manager, and encrypted email system. So this is kind of, your anonymous go bag, pseudonymous go bag. So let me back up by saying about this one, digital wellness, from my point of view, we talked about password security, we talked about digital money, and then this one, I'm really talking about what it means to protect your identity or create new identities disassociated from your own identity to be able to do research safely. For example, in the Dark Web Treasure Hunt workshop, I talk about say there's a topic that you're interested in knowing about, but you don't feel comfortable searching for it in your browser. Knowing how to get on the dark web or to use a system like this to do research is something that I think everybody should know how to do, because in our society in this day and age, there are a lot of conflicting ideas about what's right and what's wrong. And depending on who's in power and what the laws are, the research you might want to do might be considered illegal or unsafe or not socially, not, yeah, I guess not ethically, but not of the time to be okay to research that topic. So it also depends on your context. So for example, if you are in East Africa and you're a gay teen and you want to research or try to meet other gay teens, if it's illegal to be gay in that country, going and searching online for how to do it probably isn't the best idea. So having some ideas of enough about technology to be able to mitigate those risks, I think is important and part of digital well-being. The most simple version of this is knowing what it means to open up a private browser in Firefox, Chrome, or Brave, or Safari, and what that actually protects you against. So much of the language and technology about privacy and security conflates who is being protected and who is the watcher. And so it's important, I feel, and this is digital wellness, is to understand the technology enough that you can make smart decisions to protect yourself and others around you. Any questions? And I'm happy to show any of these things. I have all these things here. Cool. So I'm going to jump a little bit backwards. These are the pieces in the show right now. That was kind of my redefinition of digital wellness. And I realized when I was putting this talk together that although I wasn't always thinking about digital wellness, I have a long history of working on these topics and also topics around archiving and data preservation that all fall under this line, this kind of umbrella. So I was just going to go through for 20 minutes, half an hour, some older projects that pick at these ideas in different ways. So first up, just continuing with identities and secure communication. I kind of figured a lot of this out while working with LA Crypto Party, which is an art training organization that I ran with two others for about 8 years, just to give you a sense of the aesthetics of who we are. We made sure all of our workshops, all the documentation, people were always removed. I think we did about 30 workshops over 7 years, something like that, from anonymous browsing to these were a workshop called Kill Your Phone, which involved creating Faraday bags for your phones. So a Faraday bag is a sealed bag made out of usually a copper or nickel ripstop fabric or mesh that as soon as your phone goes in it, all signals are blocked. These are some examples of those Faraday bags. I did a workshop during the RNC convention in Cleveland when Donald Trump was running for president, and on how to make these so people that were protesting could make them. I was really disappointed, by the way, back then. There were hardly any protests at the RNC that year. All the protesters were at the DNC. Just saying. That's LA Crypto Party. We worked through a lot of these issues. We did things around doing research anonymously. Specifically in Los Angeles, we did some workshops about immigrant kids and the DREAM Act and how they could do research about safe immigration pathways uh, and doing that research safely. There's some other kind of anti-ICE projects we've done as well. Resistance systems welcome along this idea of identity and secure communication. This was a show I did in 2019 where I first did the digital resistance kit. And this was more of a pop-up shop. I also did this signal blocking clothing. So clothing with signal blocking pouches and backpacks and bags with signal blocking fabric. I did my pop-up version of Tails USB sticks and manual of digital resistance that people could buy. And by the way, this iconography of handshakes, this one is all about trust. Digital resistance kit is about trusting, right? The person that's using it has to trust me because I'm the one that curated and put these devices together. So they have to trust that I did it without putting any underlying malware in there and I did it correctly. Password cleanse is the kind of stop hand, and coin collector is the fingers crossed because hopefully that portfolio will be the most expensive book in someone's collection one day. This was a show in Cleveland, 2019. And what I figured out after the show, the aesthetics of this were a little confusing. I was trying to do this kind of wellness pop-up shop, but a lot of it was still kind of more hacker brand, more of that digital security branding. So for the show at CVA right now, I really tried to focus on kind of the goopified version of all of these things. But it was really fun to make these videos and all these things, products. So as Camilla said, I did write a trade book called A Public Service, Whistleblowing, Disclosure, and Anonymity. It came out January 2020 and was my way to, Digital Resistance Kit was a way for me, and the Manual of Digital Resistance was a way for me to test the ideas in this in kind of an art sense and process how you would actually do it. But the book is really a guide on how to blow the whistle properly, how to seek legal counsel, how to talk to the press anonymously, how to gather data and documentation in a safe way. Originally, I was going to do a small guide for how federal employees could leak to the press anonymously, and I was going to give it out in DC. And once I started writing the guide, I realized that if someone didn't do everything perfectly, they were going to be retaliated against and probably fired. So that's when I stopped from doing a kind of a small art project, and I stepped back and realized that this book had never been written on this topic, and spent 2 years writing it, which was strange to go from an artist, technologist, activist to actually author and just writing. And sorry, I will say, and in the connection to digital wellness, being able to safely gather information and store it safely and communicate it to others safely. For example, that all entails, say, I could ask all of you, like, when you send an email, do you actually think it's private between you and the other person? What are all the ways that it could be read by someone else? And I think in the book, I work through that process of how does someone think through what is actually safe and what's not, and how do you create a safe channel for communication. And largely what I argue is that all of the systems we currently use that are connected to your own identity are already compromised, and there is no safe pathway. Even if I tell you to install PGP encryption on your emails so you can send encrypted emails, the fact that your devices might already be compromised or easily compromised defeats the total purpose of encryption. So the only real safe pathway is to create a digital resistance kit, a go bag, some other device that's detached from your own identity so that you can be sure right from the beginning, because you're starting with a blank slate, that communication from that identity is secure and safe. Any questions, thoughts? I'm getting closer to wrapping it up. I'm going to go.
I have a question and a kind of a question and a thought. So I was like, while listening to you, I was remembering this book that I read a few years ago called Post-Digital Print, and this concept of post-digital, which basically signifies that we live in an era that it's not like only digital anymore, in the sense that the digital and the analog live together, and they inhabit the same space. And this had to do a lot with, well, at a certain point, the concept started with music, and then it went over to other realms. And when I read this book, this had to do a lot with small publishing fairs and books, and how people gathered online, like connected online, but then wanted to gather offline in order to have maybe a different sort of connection, or a more meaningful connection, or a different kind of approach to connecting to other people. And I feel that your work has a lot of this post-digital idea, but kind of exaggerated or extended or taken to another limit. And I feel that it really digs into other possibilities of this idea of post-digital. You kind of try to, also because of your background in security or cybersecurity, I feel like you really dig into the attributes of the physical and the digital. So I don't know if I'm on the right path for a question, but do you think you could talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I have been obsessed with physicalizing the digital for, I don't know, 12 or 15 years. I think it's a space that isn't explored that much. I think for so long people were or still are obsessed with just putting digital things in a gallery or in a physical space, or but actually changing it into an older form of technology, I think, gives the ability to view it from different angles and view it in a different context. But with all this work, particularly all the whistleblower stuff, I'm really into, sometimes the safest thing are still all the old school ways, meeting in person is much safer to have a conversation than going through all the hoops to creating a digital secure channel for the conversation. And it's fun to write about it, think about it, and know that it's true. In the same way, the security of a wax seal is a lot easier than the digital wax seal, and you can trust it more because you can see it with your eyes and feel it with your fingers and know what it stands for, rather than having to trust that someone else wrote the code correctly and it will never get hacked. Because most of the stuff online that we want to trust is open source, and then they say, well, it's been verified and audited, but none of us have enough technical understanding to be able to go through and verify and audit it ourselves at this point. So we're like 3 steps removed from the trust level. Whereas in the physical world, we can still kind of understand trust. Does that kind of get at it? Something like that.
Definitely. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
And this is a perfect segue, physical, digital, and loss. I'm going to talk about digital wellness in archiving, backups, and redundancy. And this is a line of work that I started maybe 12 years ago, but it started with a trip around the country, and I went to over 40 museums, libraries, and archives, looking at the state of how digital archives were backed up and stored, and how Born Digital was being recorded, and finding out along my journey that the standards for this are changing, evolving. People are making their own decisions in real time, or organizations are. So the consistency of how digital preservation is working is limited. And I also found out, and that this was my favorite at the time, like the Library of Congress's advice to individuals on their own personal data backups was like, put it on a DVD every 3 years. Every year, put the DVD in the computer and make sure it's readable. Every 5 years or every 3 years, copy the DVD to a new DVD, because DVDs only last 15 to 25 years, depending on the one you bought. And then it had like an asterisk that was like, and if you put in the DVD and you can't read it, that's a problem, and you should go to another copy. Basically, there's like the only copy of digital information and long-term storage. The only solution is what people call keep it spinning, keep multiple copies, keep it in multiple places, and that's basically it. And we still haven't gotten beyond that. There's no like good long-term archival system for data. So when we talk about individuals and our data, I think probably most precious to a lot of people is the photos they take on their phones. Thinking about how, I like to give this as an example, how would your grandkids, your great grandkids get the photos that you took on your phone this morning in 80 years? You probably have absolutely no clue of how that's going to happen. You're going to maybe trust in Google or Apple that they're going to live forever, or trust that your kid, when you die, is going to sort of take this terabyte or multiple terabytes of data and copy it and put it somewhere else. And the power went off in my whole building. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to connect my computer to the hotspot on my phone. Well, I made it 50 minutes through the talk, so that was pretty good. And yeah, there's no power in my building now. All right, I'm going to see if it comes back on my computer. Give me 1 second. Hi. So, sorry, give me 1 second. I will breeze through to, nope. Sorry, I just tethered to my phone. Just give me 1 minute while I try to figure out the screenshot. Cool. Okay. So this project is called Botanical Loss. I went to the Missouri Botanical Garden, and they had done high resolution scans of the Temple of Flora, which is a book from 1799. It's kind of the first large format color botanical book. And they had scanned it in for Taschen, and they had done high resolution TIFF scans. And then to go on their online archive, they created JPEG 2000 versions of these, which is supposed to be a lossless format. In thinking about what's lost through these formats, I did an analysis thinking that there would be some compression. So I wrote software to compare pixels in the JPEG 2000 and the TIFF versions. And these are the images that came out. Oh, there's the power in my studio. So where there's black, there's no loss, there's no change in color. And then the color you see is the difference in the color of the two files. So this is kind of the color loss in these things. And when you look at the TIFFs and the JPEG side by side, they look pretty much identical. And only when you really get into it can you see the difference. I'll show one other version of those. Here's another one. So they're really, really, really dark photos that kind of exemplify the loss in these two in the process of digitizing. Here's another one. And the other project about archives and loss I'm going to show is called Reimagining Wild Bill. And I was looking at Harper's archive, particularly at this. I was interested in this article. It's from Harper's from 1867 about Wild Bill Hickok, and it documents the first quick draw style duel in the US in Springfield, Missouri, between Wild Bill Hickok, and he kills this guy, Dave Tutt, in the middle of town. And I downloaded the PDF of this off of Harper's archive, and I was reading it, and page 6 was missing. They had just messed up when they scanned in the original. So if we think of all the libraries burning down and all the physical copies of this going away, if we then look at what's left of the digital, there's a hole in the middle of this article from 1867. And so I imagined, how could we fill that or work with that? And so I commissioned 14 writers to write a new page for that missing page. And so there's 14 versions of what could have happened in the middle of that. And it's kind of this crucial page during a court trial after the shooting. So maybe the growth that can occur from the loss. And I think I'll show one other project. So 2 other projects very quickly. One is called Commodify Us. This is from 2014. And this was about personal data. Very early on with Facebook, we made an actual site where you could upload your exported data from Facebook and then sell it on the open market. Basically, it's pointing a finger at the fact that any free site online that is free and you are getting something out of it you are paying for that with your data. But this went a step farther to say, if they're making money off your data, why shouldn't you? and so you can actually sell it. I'm going to skip this one, and I'll finally talk about this project called Cryptotherapy at Boulder Museum Contemporary Art. This is the facade of Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. I analyzed the website, their website, and scraped all their content, and then wrote a system to analyze and pull out all the proper names. And then I basically stalked all of the names on the museum's website, stalked those people, and looked through their data. I removed all their names. Those are kind of those little pieces of blue covering up the text. And then I projected it back at the museum at nights for, I think, a month. So it was kind of trying to expose all the people that are associated with the museum, take their data, and then expose it back on the facade of the museum as a way to kind of reconsider how much information is out there, who tries to protect their data, and what it kind of means to expose it. So I'm going to leave it there. This is my new version of digital wellness, which I said before. I'd like you all to think about your digital selves and your digital futures and how you protect those and be mindful in those choices. So digital wellness is making informed and intentional choices to protect your identities, data, and digital future. And I hope you do go and see the show at CBA if you have time. It closes in 2 weeks. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. I don't know if anyone has any questions for Tim or wants to share a thought or comments.
I can also answer digital questions if anybody has them.
So if not, then we can wrap up here.
Or if anybody wants to ask me about studio stuff, I can talk about studio stuff. Cool. Well, thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. And
oh,
thank you,
hey,
everyone.
What are those prints back there? I have a project that is going to take me a couple of years to do of redoing primary source materials about the newspaper strikes in New York City. This is my version of, I think it was a letter, but then I'm also trying to print the furniture, see what that looks like along the way. So you kind of get the whole human labor in it. That's something I'm working on. And then the other one, I'll show I just did the other day, of printing a lot of borders, printing all the borders I had. I'm happy with it. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for asking. Pretty good. I don't know if that focuses. You know, being a nerd. New stuff. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Camilo.